They say money can't buy class, but Victoria Marshall tried her best to prove otherwise. She stood there in a wedding dress that probably cost more than my entire car, smiling for the cameras like she was royalty. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a show. And my father, who once told me that love was about trust and simplicity, had somehow become a guest star in her production. My name is Olivia Bennett. I used to be the vice president of commercial lending at First Capital Bank. I worked hard to get there, late nights, business school, and years of proving myself in a male-dominated industry. But none of that mattered to Victoria. To her, I was just an inconvenience, the daughter of the man she wanted to marry. When Dad met Victoria, it seemed harmless enough. She walked into his hardware store looking for vintage tools to decorate her real estate office. She smiled sweetly and even complimented me when he mentioned I worked at a bank. A banker? How practical, she'd said, with a polite smile that, I'd later learn, meant nothing. At first, she was nice, but that changed fast once she realized who I really was, not just a banker, but the daughter of her future husband. Suddenly, my job was no longer impressive. She started calling it quaint and a little too serious for a young woman. Darling, she'd say to Dad, loud enough for me to hear, don't you think Olivia would be happier doing something less harsh? The finance world isn't very kind to women. I watched my strong, supportive father, the man who raised me after Mom died, who once told me I could be anything, start to nod along to her nonsense. She slowly took over everything, starting with the wedding. What was supposed to be a small country club ceremony turned into a full-blown society event. She controlled every decision, and each one seemed designed to push me further out of the picture. One day, I overheard her talking to her wedding planner about the seating chart. Put Olivia near the kitchen entrance, she said, she'll understand. That's where the help usually sits. The help, that's what I'd become. It hurt, not because of where I was seated, but because Dad said nothing, he just let her do it. But Victoria made one big mistake. While she was busy planning her perfect wedding, she didn't think to check who would be reviewing her business loan at the bank. 3 months earlier, she'd convinced Dad to sell his hardware store, the store he'd built from the ground up, so they could start a new business together. It was called Victoria's Vintage Ventures, some high-end interior design and home staging company that would elevate the town's aesthetic. The loan application came across my desk by chance. I could have passed it on to someone else, but something told me not to, and when I looked through the paperwork, I knew why. Victoria's business history was a mess. 3 failed companies in 5 years, each one left behind unpaid bills, angry investors, and lawsuits. She'd hidden it all by creating new LLCs and changing the names just enough to stay under the radar. I brought it to Dad. I showed him everything, but by then, she'd already turned him against me. She's just jealous, she told him. She doesn't want you to succeed without her help. He looked at me with pity. Sweetheart, change is hard, but Victoria knows what she's doing. No, she didn't, but I knew better than to fight with someone who had already made up their mind. So I approved the loan. I followed every rule. I made sure every detail was perfect, because I wanted the cancellation, when it came, to be unbreakable. The morning of the wedding, I wore a simple blue dress. Victoria had said it was appropriate for someone in your position. The venue was stunning, I'll admit that. She'd transformed the country club into something out of a movie. Imported flowers, giant chandeliers, crystal glassware, all for a crowd of people she barely knew. I found my seat, just as I expected, near the kitchen, hidden behind a floral display, out of sight. Victoria passed by, glowing in her wedding gown, and smirked at me. The kitchen's where you belong, she said, wouldn't want to embarrass the family. I didn't say anything, I just smiled a little and opened the banking app on my phone, the one I helped design. She didn't know that the same hands she tried to humiliate were the hands that held her future in them. She walked away, still thinking she'd won. But I had a plan too. Tomorrow morning, when they came back from their honeymoon to start their dream business, the truth would hit hard. The orchestra began to play. The guests were asked to take their seats. The ceremony was about to begin. I sat there quietly and watched it all, my father, my family, my place at the edge of the room. Victoria thought she'd beaten me, that I was too quiet, too soft. But she forgot one thing: revenge doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes, the best kind happens quietly, just like this. And tomorrow, she would finally see what happens when you underestimate the help. Because this wedding wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. At exactly 9:17 a.m., my phone blew up with notifications. First, a text from Victoria. No greetings, no more fake politeness. What the hell are you doing? Then one from my stepsister Sophia, short and sharp, like a command. Mom's hysterical, fix this, now. 8 minutes later, at 9:25, my dad called. I let it ring and go to voicemail. Some conversations shouldn't happen over the phone, they need to happen face to face. At 9:45, the storm hit. Victoria marched into my office like a hurricane. Her perfect designer dress was wrinkled, and her expensive makeup was smudged from crying, or screaming, probably both. My dad was right behind her. He looked confused, upset, like he didn't understand what was going on but knew it wasn't good. You vindictive little, Victoria started. I didn't flinch. I simply raised my hand and calmly said, before you say anything else, I should let you know that this meeting is being recorded, standard bank policy. Now, how can I help you? Victoria's face twisted with rage. Her voice shook. You know what you did. You cancelled our loan. I stayed calm. I turned my computer screen toward her. No, I said, the bank cancelled your loan, not me. It was denied after we discovered multiple past bankruptcies and false collateral claims on your application. Dad blinked. Bankruptcies? What do you mean fraud? I turned the screen toward him. Victoria has had 3 failed businesses in 5 years, I said quietly. She left behind unpaid debts each time and a long trail of angry investors. And that property she told you was hers, the one she listed as collateral, it's actually mortgaged several times over. She doesn't own it outright. She's lying, Victoria shouted, but her voice sounded weaker now, more desperate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The documentation is here, I said. I can show you the court records, the investor complaints, the debt claims, it's all public. Dad sank into one of the chairs in front of my desk. He looked like the air had left his lungs. The store, he whispered. I sold the store. Yes, I said, you did. Victoria suddenly lost all composure. Her voice cracked. Her whole face changed. This is about the wedding, isn't it? Because I put you in your place? I looked at her and gave her a small smile, the same one I wore when she placed me by the kitchen doors at her wedding. No, Victoria, this is about loan fraud. You lied to a federal lending institution. The fact that you're a cruel person is just a bonus. She tried to recover. Her tone turned threatening. I'll report you. I'll take this to the board. You'll lose your job. I looked at her, calm and steady. For what? Doing my job? Protecting the bank from financial risk? Go ahead, report me. I'm sure the State Banking Commission would love to hear about your business record. Dad still hadn't moved. His shoulders were slumped. His face was pale. 30 years of building a good name, his name, unraveling right there in my office. Can we fix this? He asked quietly. The loan? Is there any way? No, Dad, the loan is closed, rejected, and your reputation, well, it's going to take some work to rebuild after this. I pulled out a business card and handed it to him. This is David Cohen, I said. He's one of the best business lawyers in the city. You'll want to meet with him as soon as possible. Victoria clutched her bag, shaking with rage. This isn't over. I stood. Actually, I said, it is. Security will escort you out. That's protocol in fraud cases. Right on cue, 2 security guards stepped into the room. Victoria turned bright red as she realized what was happening. She was going to be walked out of the bank, through the main lobby, past all the people she'd wanted so badly to impress. I didn't watch her leave. I kept my eyes on my dad. He looked at me with so much regret. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I did, I said softly. I tried, but you didn't want to listen, not to your practical daughter in the harsh banking world. He flinched at that. I knew he recognized the words. They were Victoria's. She'd said them too many times. He opened his mouth again. The store is gone, I said gently, but not everything is. I pulled out a folder. Inside was my resignation letter and a business plan I'd been quietly working on for the past 6 months. Do you remember how Mom used to talk about opening a second store? I asked. Somewhere closer to the city? He nodded slowly. Well, I never stopped thinking about that. While you and Victoria were planning your dream business, I was building a real one. I found investors, real ones, people who believe in our kind of work, honest work. His hands shook a little as he opened the folder and read through the pages. We can start over, Dad, I said. We can build something again, something real, no shortcuts, no lies, just us, like it used to be. Down the hall, I could hear Victoria yelling as the security guards led her through the lobby. I didn't need to see her, I didn't need to say anything more. Dad looked up at me, eyes shining with something between sadness and hope. Why did you do all this? I smiled. Because sometimes, I said, people need to lose everything to remember what really matters. And that was the truth. This wasn't revenge, it was a beginning, one built on something solid. And this time, we'd build it right.